Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach has been released for over 2 years now, but many mysteries still lie within the Pizzaplex. There's the mystery of the Blob, Gregory, and the identity of Vanessa. But one of the biggest mysteries that still hasn't been answered is the character of Burntrap. It's not clear who this character is or what his purpose is in the franchise. And most recently, in the interview with Cawthon and Zako, we learned that his original purpose was much different, and this purpose might be the key to solving Burntrap. So in this video, I'm going to go over what Burntrap's original purpose was in Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach and what this might mean for the future of the franchise. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, in this Cawthon interview, we learn new details from the newer Fnaf games, the movie, and even the books. And when covering Fnaf Security Breach, Cawthon had this to say about Burntrap and what his original plan was when discussing how he felt about the overall game.
But I think in this case, it's okay. When it comes to Burntrap, originally, Burntrap was never supposed to move. He was supposed to just be something you saw in the corners, or like if you were walking past machinery, you might be able to peek in between two things and see him in the corner or propped up against a wall, almost like a some kind of decaying movie prop, and you never fully understood what his purpose was. And he had a very specific purpose, and I'm not going to say what that purpose was, but realistically, he never moved. Well, obviously, that's not what we got in Security Breach. In Security Breach, we got a capsule opening and purple smoke flowing out, and him climbing out and coming to get you. And so it's just not quite the same thing. So,
like he says in the small clip, it's obvious how different Burntrap was in Security Breach compared to his original idea, especially when considering that Burntrap was never supposed to move, which is almost hard to imagine. But what I think is the most important thing to take away from this clip is the fact that Burntrap wasn't supposed to move for a very specific purpose, but Cawthon hides this purpose from us. So I want to solve what this original purpose was and if we're going to see Burntrap in a future Fnaf project. In order to solve what his original purpose was, I think a perfect place to start is with the very first teaser trailer that gave us unused voice lines of Burntrap and a new scene that wasn't used in the final version of the game. So let's look at these cutscenes and see if they help us with answering what his purpose was.
When I first found you, you were nothing. You were small, pathetic. But now, you are more. Are you ready?
You will do as I say. You will bring me what I want. And if you fail me, then you will, both of you, burn!
Realize.
In the first voice line, we can assume it's Burntrap or Glitchtrap speaking to Vanessa before she would become Vanny as he's preparing her for what's to come. In the second voice line, we can assume this is actually Burntrap because of the slightly different voice, and again, I think he's still talking to Vanessa. When he refers to both of you, I think he's referring to Vanessa and Vanny as two separate entities, or he could simply be talking to Gregory and Vanny, but either way, I don't think any of these voice lines reveal to us what his purpose was. And neither does the last scene. Cawthon made it clear that Burntrap was not supposed to move at all, and in this clip we clearly see him moving. And although we never saw the scene in the final game, I still think this was created after Burntrap's purpose was changed. And this could just be an alternate scene to when he was revealed. That's why we even see the purple smoke behind his arm, and again, all of this was most likely planned after the change. So this just brings us right to the beginning. What was his original purpose? Well, I think it could be one of two ideas, with the first simply being that the reason Burntrap never moved was because he was actually a hallucination. Now, this was actually a popular theory when Security Breach was first released, and now it makes a lot more sense with Cawthon's statement. The reason Burntrap would randomly appear throughout the Pizzaplex and wouldn't move is because he was simply a hallucination. And in the very first teaser trailer for Security Breach, in one of the shots, we might have actually seen this hallucination. In the very corner of this shot, we see what appears to be the outline of someone, and when brightening this image, we can see that this someone resembles Burntrap. We can see the outline of his face, and what if this was the very first tease of a hallucination of Burntrap before plans were changed? But if this was the case, what would be the purpose of Burntrap being a hallucination? Well, I think it could really only be for one reason, which is to show that Willie Mafton's presence is in the Pizzaplex. We know the last time we saw Willie Mafton was in Five Nights at Freddy's 6 when he was burned inside the pizzeria, and it's this pizzeria that is right under the Pizzaplex. So it could be possible that his soul is still inside the pizzeria, which would allow him to access the Pizzaplex, which would then cause the hallucination of Burntrap. But of course this can be debated, as it was assumed the last time we saw Willie Mafton's soul was in a purgatory in Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Custom Night. But maybe this would have been a way to set up Willie Mafton's return in another way before their plans changed with Burntrap. Or it could have been to prove another popular theory, being that Gregory was under Glitchtrap's control the entire time. Now, although this topic can be a video on its own, Burntrap would serve the purpose to prove this, as the only reason Gregory would be able to see Burntrap was to show he was under the virus's control. And this idea is more related to the novels and the GGY story, but I could still see this being one of the original plans. So what if Burntrap's original purpose as a hallucination was to show that Willie Mafton was still present in the Pizzaplex? But moving on to the next idea, what if his purpose is related to another character? Well, I think that his original purpose was the equivalent to what Vanny's purpose is in the final version. In Security Breach, Vanny would randomly appear throughout the game and she would make your screen glitch while trying to capture you. Or she would just walk by you like we saw in this scene when we're in the charging station with Freddy. And I think Vanny's purpose is to tease a greater threat in the Pizzaplex and to tell the player that she's not alone. And this greater threat is of course Burntrap in the very end of the game. So although this can be debated, I think Vanny's purpose was to set up Burntrap. So I think Burntrap's original purpose was to set up a greater threat in the Pizzaplex, and based on what we know, he would actually act very similar to Vanny. Instead of chasing the player like Vanny would, Burntrap would just instead stand still and would creepily be standing in different areas of the Pizzaplex. This would honestly be much scarier than seeing Vanny chasing you around, as it would be chilling to just see him standing there. Maybe he would have also made your screen glitch or fill it with a purple light like the purple smoke from his charging station. But either way, he would have served the purpose of setting up the main villain and its ending. If Burntrap was only supposed to stand still in certain areas, then we can assume he wouldn't have gotten his own ending and he wouldn't have been the main villain of the game. The same way Vanny wasn't really the main villain of Security Breach. But if Burntrap was setting up a greater threat, now the question is, who would that greater threat be? Well, I think the answer is obvious, as it would be the Mimic. Scott Cawthon also talks about the Mimic in this interview, stating how he's one of his favorite antagonists from the franchise. So what if the Mimic was originally set up in Security Breach with Burntrap teasing his appearance? Meaning we would have gotten a Mimic ending instead of the Burntrap ending. In this way, the Mimic would have had a more significant setup than how it felt when he was revealed in Ruin. But this would also mean that we would have seen Burntrap in other projects as well if we're following the same timeline of events that Vanny appeared in. We could have possibly seen Burntrap in Fnaf Ruin or Fnaf Help Wanted 2, as he would have had a greater role. But unfortunately, we never saw this happen, as the last time Burntrap had a direct appearance was in Fnaf Security Breach. So really, no matter what Burntrap's original purpose was, I think this would have set up more appearances like in Ruin or in Hope Wanted 2. But because his purpose was drastically changed, this never came to be, which also leads me to believe that Burntrap won't have a role moving forward with Fnaf. Although Burntrap is one of my favorite characters in all of Fnaf, I don't see how he could have a role in any of these newer games, especially when looking at the direction it's headed in. Looking at the interview once more, Scott Cawthon stated how he could see different characters returning in the franchise once more, like Vanny or the Mimic, but he never brought up Burntrap possibly returning, and he only mentioned Burntrap when discussing his name and original purpose. So this also leads me to believe that he will no longer be in the franchise, especially when considering that he didn't appear in Ruin or in Help Wanted 2, and it's almost impossible to expect him to appear in the next project. So with that said, Burntrap's original purpose was to set up Willie Mafton or the Mimic's return in some way, but his purpose was changed to be the main villain of Security Breach, which ultimately ended the possibility of him returning in new projects. And with all of that, this is everything we know about Burntrap's original purpose. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and what do you guys think? What was his original purpose, and will we see him return in the Fnaf franchise? So make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you guys so much for watching.